So Charlatan cruises past the quarter pole in complete command, leads it by 3 to Shooter Shoot and Lane Way. There's a furlong left to go, and it's all Charlatan. He is quite real. Charlatan in front by 4 easy lengths, and he's striding powerfully through the stretch. A good-looking debut for Charlatan. Never asked for his best. Wins by 6.5.
All right, welcome back to Racing Rundown. Today we're continuing with what we've been doing in the last couple of videos with previewing some of the stakes action at Oaklawn Park this weekend. We'll also just say that in addition to doing this, we are continuing with putting out our Hall of Fame series of videos that myself and my co-host Eric have been doing over the course of the past couple of weeks. So taking a look at every candidate for the Hall of Fame. So definitely after this video, be sure to check those out and take a look at all the cases for horses that are up for election into the Racing Hall of Fame this year. But in this video, we talked about the Oaklawn Handicap last time with me. We're talking about the first of the 2 divisions of the Arkansas Derby in this video today. And this is definitely, of the 2 divisions, this is definitely the more top-heavy one. So obviously, as I did the last time, I went through the entries for this race. I'll do that again. The 1 horse in this race is Charlatan, trained by Bob Baffert, of course. The 2 is My Friend's Beer. The 3 is Mimosa, the 4 is Gouverneur Morris, the 5 is Jungle Runner, scratch the 6, Shooter Shoot, the 7 is Wrecking Crew, 8th is Anno Door, 9 is Winning Impression, 10 is Crypto Cash, and 11 is Basin. So obviously, with just even a quick glance at the morning line of this race, you can see that this is a very top-heavy race. I don't really feel like I need to make that point super clear, but if you've been paying attention to horse racing recently, obviously Bob Baffert, what else is new, has a bunch of talented 3-year-olds in his barn. And, I highlighted in the entries that Charlatan is one of his very many talented horses. And Charlatan is definitely the most unproven of the horses in the Bob Baffert barn. But I'll talk about Charlatan a little bit later. I want to talk about some of the other horses, because the way that I kind of see this race going is, there's a big favorite in this race, a huge, heavy favorite. And I know personally that's a bit of a turnoff to me, and I know that's a turnoff to, I know that's probably a turnoff to other people. So, Charlatan, I'm not very eager in playing him, and a lot of other people, I can definitely guess, would not be the same. So, I'm going to look at some of the other horses that someone may look to try to beat a big favorite like Charlatan with. And I'm going to start out by pointing that 2 of the 3 horses that I mentioned in this race are actually 2 of the top 3 finishers from the previous year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile. You've got Anno Door, who's run a couple really nice seconds, one of those being in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and then following that race up, he finished second in the LoSal Futurity. So 2 nice performances for him in graded stakes races, including that Breeders' Cup win. And he was a maiden winner, went right to the Breeders' Cup without a race before that, ran a nice second in the LoSal Futurity. And then he had an off-the-board performance, a 9th place finish in the Risen Star down at the Fairgrounds. And, I'm willing to give this horse another chance off of that. If you remember to the Kentucky Derby Trail last year, Blaine Wright had another horse that has a lot of similarities, at least to me, with this horse Anno Door. And that was a horse, Another Twist of Fate. And I've never been the biggest fan of people taking horses that seem to be primarily grass and putting them on the dirt. But it hasn't not worked yet. Like I said, I'm willing to give him another chance off of that run in the Risen Star. For the Fairgrounds is not the easiest place to ship into. He's got jockey Juan Hernandez back in the saddle, so that'll definitely benefit him. And the thing about Oaklawn that I mentioned in the last video is that shippers in from California have been doing really well at Oaklawn. You go back a couple weeks, you saw CC won the Apple Blossom. I know that that's a different horse than Anno Door, but just an indication that shippers have been doing really well. So I think that Anno Door is better than that 9th place finish in the Risen Star. But with that being said, I wouldn't necessarily pick this horse in this spot. So, I'm not going to take him, but he is going in the right direction, it would seem. And, the Fairgrounds being the way it is, he's got a chance to bounce back in this Arkansas Derby. So I'll give him a shot. Another horse that I want to look at from that Breeders' Cup Juvenile, this one's more of a long shot, and this is Wrecking Crew. And I'm going to say with Wrecking Crew, I don't think, he was third in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. He's actually hit the board in 4 of his 6 races, including twice in Grade 1 company, those being in the Del Mar Futurity and in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. But I just don't think that, Wrecking Crew is the type of horse that's going to come down here and run a big race. He was most recently 5th last start out behind Authentic in the San Felipe, and that was a race where 1,000 Words, who is a Bob Baffert horse that, won some graded stakes races earlier in the year this year, and was actually the winner of that Los El Futurity, who has not progressed or just is not the type of horse that we thought he was going to be. So, I don't think that that's a very encouraging performance. Now, I will throw in one more caveat with Anodora, that I don't think the loss to 1,000 Words says a lot of good things about him. But with that being said, I'm still going to give the horse another chance. I'm not going to really give Wrecking Crew that much of a chance here. I could see him hitting the board, but he's hit the board a lot. But I just don't think he's going to be able to step up and contend with a horse the caliber of Charlatan. So now that leads me to another horse, this one from the Steve Asmussen barn, and that would be Basin. And Basin's another horse that I just don't think is going to be able to get it done here. The thing about Basin was he was a winner of a Grade 1 race last year as a 2-year-old. He made a winner, then he went on to win the Grade 1 Hopeful, and had a layoff from September all the way up through to the Rebel Stakes, which was his most recent start from that Hopeful into that Rebel. And he ran a very respectable 3rd, especially coming off a layoff for that long, a first-time starter as a 3-year-old. But in his last race, which was a couple of weeks ago actually on the 11th, the Oaklawn Stakes, he didn't necessarily take any steps forward. I actually think he kind of took a couple of steps back. He was 4th, which was not as good as that 3rd place effort that he had in the Rebel, and he was behind a couple of horses that you would have wanted to see him beat if he was going to take a step forward and get a big win. So the thing with Basin is I just don't think that he right now is of the caliber to go 1 mile and an eighth. I think that this horse, the thing about the Hopeful is the Hopeful tends to produce more horses that are in the sprint caliber. You remember a horse in 2018 that won this race, Mind Control, who tried the Derby Trail, didn't work on the one turn. His connections realized it wasn't working, and they decided that they were just going to stick him with the one turn. And I think following this race, Basin most likely goes back to the one turn. There's a lot of signs pointing one turn with this horse, and I just don't think that this is a spot here, especially in this race where there's a big favorite to kind of take down. I don't think this is a spot where Basin is going to take a step forward and beat a horse of the caliber of, say, a Charlatan. So that's really what I think with him. And the final horse I'm going to talk about, which is probably your best bet if you're someone who's going to try to take down the heavy favorite Charlatan, is Gouverneur Morris, son of Constitution, who's run some nice races. He's won 2 of 4 lifetime starts. He was 2nd in a Grade 1 effort in the Breeders' Futurity, then won an allowance at Tampa before finishing 4th behind a dominating performance by Tiz the Law in the Florida Derby. And Gouverneur Morris, I should say, didn't really do anything bad in that Tampa Bay Derby, but he didn't take any steps forward. And the thing with him is just, I don't think he's experienced enough, and he needs to grow into himself, and I don't think that this is the thing with all the horses that are challenging Charlatan in this spot. I don't think that there's anyone that is in the prime position to take him down. Now, I'll get to this in a couple of minutes with Charlatan. I don't think he's I don't think he's the most ready for this spot either, but I don't think there's any horse in here that jumps off the paper as one that is ready to run a huge race and take him down. So, there's a lot of horses in here, like I mentioned, Anodor and Gouverneur Morris, who are both, if you can get 6-1 or something like that on Anodor, that would be very nice odds to get on him. 9-2 on Gouverneur Morris is not terrible. I would not take 8-1 with Basin, but if you can get something like that on those horses and you want to take a shot against the big favorite Charlatan, then that would be advantageous. But I will talk about Charlatan just for a little bit, because this whole video has been kind of looking towards him. And the thing that I would say about this is the prime race where you look at this horse and you say, this is the horse you want to beat. But then you look at the horses that are in this race, and it's really impossible to go against Charlatan in this race. There's not really any standout 3-year-old in this. If anyone's familiar with what happened with the original post-draw, he was running against a more balanced division, and it wasn't top-heavy, but there was a screw-up with 2 horses being owned by the same owner, ending up in the same race. So it's unfortunate that Charlatan is now in a race where he's not really going to have to be tested as much, and that's kind of the thing for, specifically with what my co-host Eric said on our regular podcast, which I would recommend you go check out after this video, is he talked about this and said that, you would have wanted to see for a horse like Charlatan, especially if he's the type that's going to continue on the Kentucky Derby trail, to be in a race like this, to at least have some kind of a challenge thrown at him. And that's just not going to happen. Doesn't seem like it's going to happen in this race. I'm not going to say it's absolutely not going to happen, but Charlatan, he's going to be a horse. He's going to probably end up on the lead alone. He's not going to have to face a lot of pressure, unlike his stablemate Nadal, who is going to have a very serious whether or not he goes up with a pace question to answer. Charlatan's just not going to have that. There's not really any horse in here that I don't know a lot about Charlatan as a horse because he's only run against maiden and allowance companies, but you just have to assume with the talent that some Bob Baffert horses have had, and from what we've seen of his races, which have been dominating, albeit the fact that he has been running against maiden and allowance company, but, it just doesn't seem like, from what we've seen of him and what we've seen from the other horses in this race, that there's not anyone in this race that can beat him. So, as much as I would like to say, this is the horse I would like to go against the big favorite in this spot with, you just can't. It's just, there's no one in this race that's going to take a big step up to take him down. And, he's not really going to have any trouble to face on the front end. There's some distance question with him, especially with him being by Spicetown. Mile and an eighth is mother authenticity didn't go much farther than a mile and an eighth, but there's not really anything here that indicates that he's going to be tested on that. So, I would not bet this race. I don't think there's anyone in here that's going to be of super good value, and Charlatan's definitely not going to be any good value. So, with that being said, as much as I would love to go against him, you just can't go against him in this spot. As disappointing as it is that he's not going to be tested, it's probably going to be Charlatan loose on the front end. I will gladly be wrong in this spot, but I just don't think that there's a way you're going to beat Charlatan. So I hope that the second division of the Arkansas Derby is definitely going to be more attractive. So I will say that ultimately I'll take Charlatan in this spot. I'll give a couple of horses that I think will run solid races. I'll take a horse, Anno Dor, to run second, and I will take Wrecking Crew to run third, just because Wrecking Crew usually fills out a trifecta or an exacta. So those will be my top 3 for this race. Don't think anyone beats Charlatan. Would not be upset to be wrong in this spot, though. So thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you taking time to take a listen. There will be more previews for the fantasy as well as the other division of the Arkansas Derby. If you haven't subscribed already, we would appreciate the subscription as well. And also, if you haven't followed us on our social media, specifically our Twitter, you can go follow us there as well. Links will be in the description for that. So, good luck if you're playing this race. I wouldn't, but if you are, good luck with that. And hopefully we'll see you around again. Thanks for stopping by.
By Silent Fury, top of the stretch. Charlatan by 4 to Rushy. Great Power is in third. The competition is simply overmatched. Charlatan handling the stretch out like a true professional with so much gas in the tank. He is widening with every stride, just galloping through the lane. Charlatan, ultra impressive, wins by many.